So excited today because I have Steven H. Watkins. Mr. Watkins is here in studio today. Well, not in studio, but he's in his studio. He's chairman and chief executive of Entrex. So, I Googled Mr. Watkins. He's the real deal. He's no stranger to the business world. He's been around the block, okay? Founding a bunch of successful companies in the information and business services realm. Actually, two of them even hit the $1 billion mark in market cap. But here's the kicker. Through all of his ventures, he noticed this recurring struggle for entrepreneurial companies trying to get their hands on capital. It's like there's this messy, inefficient maze that they have to navigate just to get funding. So, inspired by all these headaches, Mr. Watkins came up with this brilliant idea, Entrex. It's a sort of capital market tailor-made for entrepreneurial ventures, okay? And to really shine a spotlight on the entrepreneurial scene, he started writing this financial column that reached over 8 million readers nationwide. Not to mention, he teamed up with the Dow Index folks to launch the Private Company Index, showing off just how lively and kicking the entrepreneurial world is. He's also an author. Y'all, I got to get my hands on these books. One is called Capital Can't Fund What I Can't Find. What a great name. All about the struggles and solutions when it comes to capital markets and funding for small companies. The other is called Romancing Capital, Get Them at Hello. But how? That's why I need these books. I need to figure out how. But less about me, more about Watkins, who's not just sitting behind a desk all day. Mr. Watkins is out there in the trenches, rubbing shoulders with presidents and big names in business at places like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and Fortune Small Business. He's constantly chatting with other CEOs of small companies about the nitty gritty of growth and financing and getting that precious capital. That's what we all want, right? So happy to have you join us today. Thanks for being here. And can I call you Steven?
You certainly can.
It's going to be weird because my husband's name is Steven. Okay, so it might come with a tone.
Ooh, okay. I'm ready. I'm used to that tone.
All right. So, oh my gosh, you're like a jack of all trades, but all trades being finance. How'd you get started in this?
Well, it's funny. It's actually logistics. If you go back in my background, which is more than you want to know. Originally, it goes back to my dad did a $5 million IPO on the American Stock Exchange, and he left the company with about $4 billion in revenue. And that's you can't do that story anymore. And if you're not raising $1 billion, the markets just really can't support you. And so after a couple of successes, I said, let's try to figure out how to support what I define as entrepreneurs. And, it's interesting. If you look at the market, there's 18,000 public companies, yet there's 2 million private companies, right? So the scale is massive. And those companies really struggle on an efficient basis to raise capital. So naively, we said, let's create Entrex as an entrepreneurial exchange. Sounds so simple. The issue becomes you cannot be an exchange for non-public securities. So we had to argue with the SEC. We had to argue with FINRA. We had to figure out how to get the broker-dealers through a trading technology platform that brought broker-dealers originating transactions and broker-dealers placing transactions and be that efficient, regulatory compliant vehicle in the middle. And this is back in 99, 2000. So we really pushed hard. Probably the pinnacle was 2015 when our broker-dealer managed the first trade on the blockchain of a security, which was kind of fun. Those were big, heady days. We did the overstock.com Tiger Cub security. And one of the other things we did was we found that equities, traditional stock of private companies, are very difficult to value. If I sold you a stock today of a private company, how do you value it more or less next week? And what we ended up finding, and we got a patent around this, for the securitization of a slice of revenue and the marketplace in which it trades. And so it was a process patent. And it basically said, look, Georgia, your hockey stick curve when your revenues is going to go like this. What's the likelihood of it going to do that? And you do a simple discounted cash flow on the anticipated cash flow from a slice of that revenue. And so let's just say we take 1% of your revenue, and then we divvy that up in a security for everybody gets 0.1% of revenue in their security. And then every month you get that percent. And now you can figure out what the value of that security is. It was brilliant. And so the first one we did on the blockchain was with Overstock. I think it was 6/100% of revenue. but we broke it down into $10,000 slices, and then it traded with institutional buyers. And it was really an interesting business model. I don't think the market was ready for it. I was probably a little too early. Now it's turned into a lot of crowdfunding and things that I'm not necessarily proud of. But I think when you look at the testimony we did in Congress, and as we were talking, I had lunch with Obama at the White House. It's really interesting kind of things to try to propel that sector of the economy, because that's the growth sector of the nation.
That's right. I like how you flippantly said, I had lunch with Obama, and I think that's fantastic. You're always around these movers and shakers. Let me just ask you straight, what exactly, and you've explained a little bit, but what is Entrex?
Well, so today you could argue we're a technology company that works together with broker-dealers, originating deals, and those placing. And so we've taken the model that supported the entrepreneurs, and we said, let's go look at how the carbon market fits into that. And you've probably heard about carbon, all
Neutral,
these companies. All that stuff. Well, last week, Bloomberg said it's going to be a $20 billion market in a matter of years. But it's all very illegitimate today. It's all done under UN sanctions and registrars that you double and triple sell the security, not a security, you double and triple sell this offset because there's no tracking. Well, you and I both know in the financial market, you cannot double sell a security. There's one security and one person owns it at a time. The methodologies are incredibly efficient. Now, the other thing we found working with KPMG, which was kind of fun, was the trading a carbon offset on the blockchain, trading 1 metric ton took about 1 metric ton of power to actually trade it, compared to 216,000 trades on Wall Street for that same metric ton.
Wow.
So the blockchain, energy-wise, is just so inefficient. And so what we ended up saying was we have to figure out how to make this easy for broker-dealers to support their clients that need carbon offsets. And we need to be able to produce those carbon offsets from the originators, the people that have carbon offsets. And so we look like NASDAQ or NYSE, where in the middle you've got these securitized carbon offsets that broker-dealers can trade to their buying clients.
Wow. So let me ask you this. Is this carbon neutral thing, is it a fad or is it the future? I think it's the future, but I want to know what you think.
Well, hey, I'm in the middle. I'd love it to be real, and I believe it's real. I think the past election cycle, it was a big question, right? Was Trump or was Biden going to support the trend? I think this election cycle, there's so much momentum behind it. The SEC last month declared that the large issuers have to have what they call a scope 2 emission. You have to count what your emission is. And based on today's emission, if you've declared carbon neutrality by 2030, which nearly every public company has, you better be on the way there. You cannot wait for that 2029 management team to be there. If you've given yourself 10 years, you better be 10% there each year, which means if you can't create efficiencies and lower your carbon footprint, you have to buy carbon offsets to minimize that footprint. So when Bloomberg announces, we need 1 billion carbon offsets, that's 1 billion metric tons of carbon, I don't think that market's going away. I think it's here to stay. The legitimization of it is key, which is why the SEC and FINRA and then creating a regulatory compliant marketplace for this matters to us. And why I think.
No, I was just going to say, so you guys are kind of on the forefront of this. And if people want to, who are listening or watching on our YouTube channel, how do they find out more about it? How do they find out more about Entrex?
EntrexCarbonMarket.com. There you have it.
All
Simple.
right. Thank you so much you're just like a bevy of information I could really take. I know Watkins is so busy. He's got other podcasts to do, but I could take your whole day up, but I know I can't. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.